Hi, HR Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives on the world's leading global brands. Today, we're joined by Melissa Werneck, Global Chief People Officer at the Kraft Heinz Company. Welcome to the show. Melissa, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for inviting me. I was
Nice to
looking
see you again.
forward for this day.
Amazing. Where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from Chicago, cold, wintry Chicago.
Is it snowing? Because a lot of my family are in Canada and it's just like full of snow. Is it just as bad in the US?
Last week we had a lot of snow. It was a white New Year's Eve, but today it's good.
Yeah. At least you're probably prepared for it. Like in London, if it snows, the whole entire city just closes down. Like the trains don't work, the buses, nothing, the road, we have no road vehicles to get rid of snow. It just closes. But I'm sure you're a bit more advanced.
No, the city is very prepared, so no issues at all.
Before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit more about yourself personally and your journey to where we are today.
Oh, very good. And you will all notice by my accent that I'm not a native English speaker. In fact, I am originally from Brazil. So the winter here is brutal and doesn't treat Brazilians right. I prefer a warm weather, but I have been in US already for 8 years. So I had to get used to the winter. There was no other option. Working HR was not part of my original plan. I am a chemical engineer. And when I say that, people say, what? What is a chemical engineering doing in HR? But I am a chemical engineer that discovered myself in HR. I came to HR as an assignment, and I thank God every single day for that assignment because I fell in love with the function. And I soon discovered that HR and chemical engineer, they are somehow related. They are not that apart as people think that they are. And the reason that I chose chemical engineering and the reason that I love HR is the same. And I can summarize this in one word, that is transformation. You know, from a raw material to a final product, from a young talent, a rough diamond, to a jewel, jewel. That is my passion. That's my mission in life, and that's why I chose HR.
Wow, I love that analogy. And I'm always surprised. There's quite a lot of chief HR officers that are engineers. There's more. You're not the only one. And I'm always surprised by that. So how did you tell me?
They are surprised if they ask me, if you could go back, would you choose chemical engineer again? And I answer yes, I really would, despite that I made a different life choice in HR, but the chemical engineer brought me a lot of skills that I value a lot.
Just briefly, what are some of those? What are some of the things that you took from becoming a chemical engineer that transferred, that helped you in your role in HR?
I think the process-oriented mindset, this thing that everything, there is a process, there is a beginning, there is an end, there is an input, there is something that happens, and there is an output. And that I take for life, not only in HR, my personal life.
Especially now more than ever. So very important
now more than ever.
Yeah. How did you end up then at Kraft Heinz, from Brazil to North America? Like, how did that happen?
I used to work for a company that had the same shareholders. So I joined after they acquired Heinz in 2013, and they invited me to help to implement the new management model, culture, and everything.
Wow. How was it moving over? Did you speak English when you moved over?
Yes, I did, but it was a poor English. The good thing that I always had a trust relationship with my team, with my peers, and I always told them, please correct me. Tell me when I'm making up words that don't exist. Tell me when I'm pronouncing something wrong. Laugh if you want to laugh. I have zero problems with that, and that helped me to advance.
That's a great way to.
It was a good move. It was. I'm very happy with the decision that I made.
Yeah, and that's amazing, and it's great to have that vulnerability as well with the team, and I'm sure it's a great way to connect with the team and have be more authentic as well. And so just a bit of a random question, but I remember reading an article that you did, which came on Medium, and you said, don't try to be the perfect wife, mother, or professional. And I love that. The authenticity and the vulnerability.
Took me a few years of therapy to come with that statement, but when I realized that, it was freedom, and that's what I believe. And that's the way I coach young leaders, especially young female leaders that are going through the same, marriage, first kids, and trying to balance dual careers, and that for me was freedom, and I use that a lot to coach.
Yeah, it stood out to me because my wife and I have struggled quite a lot, like many people during this period, to balance family life, work life. We're all I live in an apartment, and it's, we have a 2-year-old running around whilst trying to do my job. My wife's on phone calls, and then we've got to, make lunch for our daughter. And at some point we realized, I said, we're not superheroes. At some point, there's some of those plates, as you put it, they're going to smash. And
what I tell people is just make sure that we are breaking a small plate. And a small plate, can be different. Maybe your small plates are different from my small plates. Just don't break the big ones. But, breaking in small plates is part of life.
Yeah, but I think a good advice that I took away from the articles, which we've implemented, is making sure we have those core key moments and points scheduled, like, birthdays, family time, etc. And then work around, and then design my work experience around that, both of us. And that's really helped as well. So yeah, appreciate that. Good advice. So I'm a new dad, so I'm still learning along the way. What are the areas that are most passionate to you right now? Obviously, given everything that's going on, what's been kind of the main focus for you and the team over the last sort of 6 to 8 months?
The main focus have been, of course, related to COVID, how to protect our employees, and we are essential workers as well. We need to make sure that everyone has food on the table. So balancing people that, they are still working in the factories, producing the food that all of us are eating at home, with people working in the field close to the grocery stores, with office people working from home, keeping them engaged, keeping them as part of the day-to-day. Has been, I think, our main focus in this past 12 months. But what I'm really passionate about, I'm very passionate about development. I'm very passionate about analytics, and that is my chemical engineering side coming into place. And I am also very passionate about diversity and inclusion. So I would say that those are the three things that I'm very engaged.
Yeah, let's start with the learning experience, because that's had a huge shift due to the pandemic. It's 100% online now. My mom and my sister are are teachers, and they're having to teach online, and it's a whole new experience for everyone. How are you supporting your employees' learning experience during this time?
I'm so glad that a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, we took the decision to build our corporate university, with a huge technology platform and a lot of learning experiences delivered on the go, delivered virtually. Okay. And when we were building our corporate university, I visited a lot of companies. Now, it was right after the moment that Kraft and Heinz merged, and we said, look, what do we want to build? And it was good because we could start over. And I said, look, let's see what companies are doing out there. And I saw a lot of good things, but a lot of good things based more on the traditional adult education learning with huge infrastructures. People talk a lot about the bricks and clicks. And the problem is that you can live with both, but the brick cannot prevent you to evolve on the click. And chose to embrace technology. But why? Because we wanted to go beyond mandatory training or training by nomination. Because that is the opposite of agility. And in the world that we have today, that we're talking a lot about skills, upskills, skills being the currency of the future, you cannot spend weeks and weeks designing boot camps or working on nominations, because that is the opposite of agility. And our dream was always to democratize learning, regardless where you are located in the world, regardless of the language that you speak, regardless of the time zone, if you are at home, if you are at work, if you are at a train, if you are at the airport waiting your plane to take off, if you are in a bus. And we wanted our corporate university to provide to our employees, the Google or the Netflix experience. And I'm so glad that we did that. Of course, we are not anticipating that COVID would hit, that we would need that everybody would be remote. But when that happened, we had the platform ready, and we were able to pivot everything very fast. We just had, in December, we had our learning day, our first, we call our corporate university Ownerversity, because
nice.
we believe on the employees taking the reins on their own development. We create the content, but we foster intellectual curiosity. You need to own your development. And we did our own university day. It was amazing. It was a 24 hours learning marathon.
Wow.
That we were able to tackle all time zones, all countries. We had more than 40% of our, what we call the salaried population, joining. We had 40 sessions. It was amazing. So we were able to pivot very, very, very fast and use learning as a way to keep people engaged on the day-to-day of the company.
Wow. Can you share which partner you used? Did you build it yourself, or are you working with another learning partner, LMS, or partner that is already out there?
Our platform is built based on Cornerstone.
Okay.
A lot of customization.
Yeah.
So we have our playlists, we have our suggestions for you. We wanted really to provide the Netflix experience in our corporate university, but the foundation is through Cornerstone LMS.
Did you also use this as a way to communicate? Because you mentioned engagement, and I saw so many companies use their platforms as a fantastic way to connect with their employees, whether you're in a warehouse, a factory, or at home. Having that mobile experience and being able to reach people through that, is that something you tapped into?
Yes, and especially when we have internal employees delivering content, that's a very good way to connect. And our leaders, each of our leaders, they have their own playlists, and we follow people that build their own playlists. So it's a good way to connect. If I have a playlist and someone follows me, I feel the responsibility on, oh my God, I needed to work on the content that is in the air because someone is following me.
That's how I feel on LinkedIn. It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure.
But it goes back to your point of people taking control of their own learning, right? And it sounds like you've designed every part of the platform to facilitate that and to promote, and I'm sure you reward that as well.
Our chief learning officer, she crafted our mission, that is create a culture of continuous learning, bold creativity and intellectual curiosity. That is the only way, because there is no longer time to babysit, or the companies, I need to develop someone, or I needed to upskill, and I need to build a program, and I needed to nominate. Especially now, people cannot travel. In order for you to have the agility, the employees need to want that and be curious to find knowledge somewhere. But when they come, you need to be ready. And that is something that she said as well. Oh my God, I really need to build the engine first, because when I invite the employees to come, my house needs to be in order.
That's true. Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have been a disaster.
Yeah, and you only get one kind of chance to make a good impression. So you really want people coming back
Exactly.
as well. How are you measuring the ROI? Because that's a big challenge. And a lot of the leaders I speak to and many of the CLOs that are on the show, how do you measure the ROI of your investment into that learning platform?
Look, I really don't think that anyone has cracked the code on ROI. And you see beautiful articles about that. I think the ROI is more if you are fulfilling what is your aspiration. And our aspiration in our case of learning was exactly to foster intellectual curiosity. So my ROI is, look, are people really joining the platform? Are people joining our learning movement? And I will quote her again, our chief learning officer, she created a movement that is called Learn Like an Owner. And in the beginning, she was the lone wolf, and she made a commitment that she would learn something new every single day for 1 year. So she would have one learning experience for 365 days, and she would post it on our internal communication platform that we call Catch Up for a reason.
Good. He wouldn't know the brand. Yeah, that's great. Love it.
And she wanted to do that, but the aspiration was, look, I want people to join the movement. And she was the lone wolf for a month. Then a month later, the European Chief People Officer joined her, and other people came later. Long story short, fast forward, in 1 year, we have more than 1,000 employees that joined the movement.
Wow.
And more than 500 managers made the pledge to make time for their employees to learn. That's remarkable, and that for me is ROI. If our ambition and our aspiration was exactly foster intellectual curiosity, that's a very, very good indicator that, oh, really, we start with 0 and we have more than 1,000.
Yeah, love
in
that.
the end, if you're talking about the business ROI, all your investment on learning will be measured by your results in the end. I think there is no other way. If you're doing all that, investing all this money, and your results are not evolving, there is something wrong, and you need to understand why.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if your prioritized skills or capabilities are not evolving as well, if there is someone out there, your competitor is better than you, there is no ROI. So that's a little bit of my view on that.
I love that. And I love the learn like an owner, because that's something that when I was in my first job, I didn't go to school. I started working at 17 in a sales role. And I always approached the role as if I owned a company. And people always used to think I was quite strange because I acted, and when I was making a decision to hire someone or particular project, I would look at it and say, if this was my business, what would I do? And I was constantly learning. Even though I was in sales, I was learning about supply chain, marketing, production, sales, and that mindset, I think, is what's got me to where I am today. Is just a continuous, for me, it was an hour and a half journey to work and an hour and a half home. And I'd be consuming content via podcasts and other platforms, and every day executing on those learnings. So I just love that. Absolutely love that. And leading by example, as a CLO, and to inspire everyone else is amazing.
You got it. It's exactly that. And if you do that on the go, you're talking about your commuting time. That's exactly that. If you have a platform that is there, you are sitting 1 hour in a train going to work, just use the time to do something.
Yeah, that was the only time I had, to be honest, and it definitely paid off. It kind of leads me quite good onto our next question, because one of the big challenges I hear from your peers and everyone is, around building the skills that leaders need for the future now. Do you have a mechanism to kind of tap into your, LMS or NXP to see these are the skills that people have developed, and see what skills exist in the organization? Is that something you've worked with?
The way we work, it's based on our enterprise strategy. We identify what capabilities we had to evolve in the company, and we created a criteria that we said, look, those are the capabilities that we are okay being capable, but those are the capabilities that we really need to be fit to win. We need to be better to our competitors, and we prioritized them. So of course, we know where we are today, we know where we want to be, and you just make the journey. But what I strongly believe is that you need to develop the internal professors, because you can spend a fortune developing a whole function or a whole level. If in the end, the requests that those people are receiving are not raising their own bars, the forgetting curve, it's something that will come into place. The forgetting curve for me is the main principle in learning and development. You need to continue to remind people about what they learn. Otherwise, the book will be in the bookshelf, and if they don't have to use that, they will come back to it, I don't know, 2 years ago, and they won't remember anything. So people, they need to be challenged. And the only way to really, it's my view, okay, to upskill an organization is if the leaders start asking different questions to their teams. So that was the path that we chose, starting from the top, or building that expertise in-house, making people asking different questions, and came along giving them the tools to that. So talking about the 21st century, I think the most important focus is on leadership. And that is something that I learned, people talking about the learnings from the past. If I could go back in time, I would really start and would put all my resources on leadership development. I don't know if I will share with you on the statistics that I saw, I don't know, I think 2 years ago, and I dream about that every single day. It was a research from Gallup saying that only 1 out of 10 people, only 1 is naturally wired to be a people manager, to be a leader. 9 out of 10 are not. Scary.
Yeah. I'm not surprised though. It's scary, but I'm not surprised.
So with these statistics in place, leadership development needs to be item number 1 in the agenda of the CEO, the CHRO, and all the main senior leaders of the company. Because with that, you will teach people to hire people that are better than they are. You will teach people to invest time developing their teams. You will master them on that specific capability, and they will apply right away. That's my belief on being ready for the 21st century.
Mm-hmm. How are you helping prepare them? Because this year, more than any, has probably been one of the most challenging times for any leader, manager. Not only are you, it's hard enough in the normal environment, but now you're adding on, COVID and, just, anxiety, everything, social injustice. There's the list goes on at this point. It's been a very tough year. And then you're managing some people at home, some at work. I'll be honest, I've struggled even as a leader. It's been the most challenging time for me. And I've really struggled to get that balance with my team, working remotely, and everyone has their own circumstances as well. So how have you supported your leaders through these times?
I think this year was the year that leadership was really, really, really challenged, and people had to go above and beyond on it. Saying that, though, people were prepared to that, I don't think so. I think we all learn, on the go. Having this platform that we were able to share experiences, and also having articles available on how to cope with that, how to keep teams engaged, how to check in with people every week, I think helped. So we did a lot to keep the teams engaged, from cooking competition among the senior leaders that was broadcasted to the whole organization, to a talent show, to virtual happy hours.
Yeah.
Those were tools that we put in place to help the leaders. But as I mentioned before, I think the leaders, they had to take the reins on that. They got everything that the company offered, but some of them, they went really above and beyond. We had people that had implemented breakfast with the team once a week, happy hours with the team once a week. They did their own cooking, being a food company, everything is around the food.
Yeah, of course.
Building their own, look, today we will have dinner together, but without the families and the pets. It was engaging. But we learn on the go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think, and I think the point was sharing experiences. So I remember one of the leader in New Zealand did something that's very interesting. 1 week later, the whole world had copied it, because we were able to very fast share this good practice that happened in a country in the other side of the globe.
Yeah, I love that. And that's one of the great powers of technology, is that you can share all of those great moments and feel like, although we're so far apart, we feel connected through this shared experience.
And the talent show was an idea, for example, that started in Canada. And in the end, they said, no, let's do our global talent show. It will be our American Idol experience. And it was amazing.
Yeah. Do you think you do that again? Continue it now once a year?
Yes. And the cooking show, the same. Just this year, they put me to compete with the CEO. That was not fair. Next year, you need to put me to compete with someone that's different.
Oh my God. What's going to be your talent?
No, that was in the cooking show.
Oh, the cooking one. Okay.
It was the cooking one. The talent show was open for the families as well. So my son was representing the family. He was the one singing and playing ukulele, the talent show.
Oh my God, it's amazing. But I love that, because it's, again, just the kind of this authenticity, this vulnerability that I felt like I learned more about some of my employees and got such closer relationships through this than ever before. We all get to see inside each other's lives, and we all understand that everyone's affected by this, and it's just something about that just kind of builds a different type of connection and bond between leaders.
And another thing that we did to help the leaders that was important is provide data. And that I think it's where people analytics come in place. Mm-hmm. Real-time data. So we were talking about anxiety and mental health, and we all had a feeling of what was going on, but it was just a feeling. How to really understand what was going on, or what people were struggling more with, in order for us to come with something that would help them. And one of the findings that we had is said, look, people, they're not being able to disconnect, because before they would disconnect during the commuting, and they would arrive at home fresh. Now there is no disconnect anymore. How can help people to sleep better? People, they start to say that they were having sleep problems. And then we did a partnership with an app, and created a meditation process or podcasts or relaxation songs that would help people to sleep better. And that came from the survey. We did partnership with tutoring and schools to help parents that were struggling homeschooling the kids. But we were able to be that fast just because we had the information on what they needed. Our offices are closed, but we realized that some people, they were struggling because they lived in small apartments, or they share apartments with other people. And they asked us, look, just open something in the office for me to have a different environment, I don't know, once a week. And then we listened to them. We opened the office. So having this real-time data and the ability to capture this information, it's very important to support the leaders in this journey.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, how would they capture that?
Yeah, it's incredible. And again, you have those, it's so important, the power of data, to have that. And one of my questions I was going to ask you is, how are you using people analytics to navigate uncertainty? And those are some great examples.
That.
Yeah.
That, and I think another example was during COVID, as I mentioned before, our factories were open. And our number one mission is to protect and is to protect our employees. So we wanted to analyze clusters where our factories were located with COVID data in the community to see and to use predictive analytics to say, look, the situation now is that, how would it be, I don't know, 1 week, 2 weeks from now, to really identify the actions that we had to implement in those specific clusters. Because analyzing data from Illinois, for example, here in the United States, doesn't help because my factory is located on a specific community. I need really to understand the data from that community. And in order for me to be able to make agile decisions, it needs to be real time. I don't have time to build something that will be ready in 6 months. That was another of the usages that we had on people analytics to navigate the uncertainty. We are now building a model on vaccination to really see where we should prioritize vaccination, because there is a limitation on vaccines. We all know that. So we are now using people analytics to identify that.
That's incredible. And with these models already in place, right? You kind of just a different set of inputs.
It's just a different set of inputs. Yeah, it's exactly that.
And that's thing that, sometimes people seem to overcomplicate it. But that's pretty much, you already have those models built. It's then just kind of inputting a different set of data, right?
Exactly.
To get those outcomes. I think lucky for you, you're quite, not to say lucky, you've done the hard work, but your team's pretty advanced as opposed to many others. What advice would you give to them that perhaps don't have an incredible team that I know you have in your organization?
I think you need to start somewhere. Don't try to boil the ocean. Start somewhere. Get a real pain point that you need the really data to understand. Start building that. Unfortunately, some companies, they don't even have an HRIS that is robust enough. And you need to start there, because if you don't own, or if you don't have your own information centralized on a platform that you can just capture the data right away on real time, it won't work. So we need to start on the HRIS and then with a real problem and build from that.
Yeah, and making sure you have the right data going in. Otherwise, if you put garbage in, garbage out, right?
It's my learning from my chemical engineering years. If you have a bad input, if the raw material is not good, the product will be bad. So you need to have data accuracy and everything.
Yeah. How is obviously, given your your background in engineering, you kind of veer towards this and have a better relationship than maybe some of your other peers. How has HR analytics elevated the role of HR, and what advice would you give to other CHROs?
I think what I noticed in HR, I think we have one step to achieve before that as HR. I still think that HR is not that close to the day-to-day of a commercial area, operations area, finance, legal, understanding really the enterprise strategy. I would generalize and say business acumen, but HR is business as well. I don't like people that say, no, HR needs to be close to the business, because HR is
the business. I love that. That annoys me too, by the way.
So that really annoys me. And sometimes I say that, and my team, they hold me accountable and they say, look, HR is business. I say, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. But I think HR needs to be closer to the pain points from the commercial areas, operations, and everything. And I think HR still lives somehow isolated in its own bubble. And the danger, if you don't do that first, is that you will do people analytics just to, check a box or just to show that you have data, but it won't be used. And if it won't be used, you won't have the buy-in. And if you don't have the buy-in, game over.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was so happy that the US COVID crisis management group, they are working, as I said, on the vaccination and everything and trying to prioritize the plan. And they came to me and they asked, oh, can you please assign the Global People Analytics team to United States to help us to set everything up with data for us to have a consistent plan? And then I said, wow, that's a dream come true.
Mm-hmm.
Because exactly, they have a pain point that they need data to solve, and they were asking the team support to build that. Then, it's something that is effective. You have the buy-in. It's not analysis paralysis. So you need to be careful. What are you going to do with that data? If you won't do anything, just don't waste time.
Yeah, it goes back to your point. You really have to understand those pain points of the business and focus there. Don't try and solve everything. Just focus on those. You'll get the buy-in, and you'll get to the point, like I hear from many of your peers, where they keep knocking on the door too much. So then you have the opposite problem, Chris, because they're knocking too much because you're solving too many problems for them. So it's really great to see it play. During this crisis, to see how effective that's been for you and the team. To both support your health and well-being of your employees, but also then understand strategically which offices should open, which should close. And then, of course, now during a pandemic, again, is showing how important it is for you can understand these are the areas we can prioritize, et cetera. So it's incredible to see that.
Still a lot to do, okay?
Yeah, but
one thing that we are, it's that we are very humble. My team, they say that I always have but this is good, but we need to be better.
That's a good attitude to have, though. Yeah, it's a good attitude to have. It's a good attitude. Sometimes you do need to take a moment to celebrate some wins along the way. I have that problem with my team as well. We never step back and sometimes take a moment to look where we've come, how far we've come. Because we're always focused on the next
every day.
Yeah. So obviously you mentioned diversity and inclusion. I know it's a huge passion of yours, and I'd love to understand more about how you're making diversity and inclusion, equity a priority and a practice in the workplace at Kraft Heinz.
I think first needs to be clear to the organization that it's a priority, and your programs, they need to reflect that. We were talking in the beginning about the learning and development, and I was telling you about our dream of democratizing learning. That's inclusive. If you don't do that, they say, look, no, there's a specific training, and I'm not saying that you won't have that. Sometimes you need to have a specific boot camp to a specific group of people that you want to accelerate their development. But if you don't make things available to everybody, it's not inclusive. How are we going to help someone to accelerate their career if program ABC they don't have access to? So I think that's very, very important that you walk the talk. And I think to be sure to the organization that it's relevant and it's a priority, need to be part of your values. And we have just reviewed our values, and we talked to more than 500 people to capture what they think was good in the past, what they think was missing. And diversity, we didn't have that as part of our values, was, I think, the number one thing that 500 people, they said that and said, whoa, they're right. So we demand diversity became one of the core values of the company. We have 6, we demand diversity is 1. I think the second piece is that you needed to show to the organization that the senior leadership is committed to that. That's not something that is delegated to the, I don't know, fifth level of the organization. And what we decided this year, we put in place an inclusion council. We had the enterprise resource groups before that were championed by volunteers and not necessary. I championed the veterans group in the United States. I'm not a veteran. I'm not originally from the United States, but that's a cause that I'm very passionate about. So I chose it, and so we had that before. And those people, they were able to implement a lot of different things, but we didn't have an inclusion council with senior leaders as part of that. And that's something that after everything that happened this year, and I'm glad that before people were talking about that, we had already changed our values. We said, oh, we need to come with an inclusion council. Our CEO is the chair of the inclusion council. I have 2 board members in there, and still a lot to do. It's very new, but I think show to the organization that we care, and that's an agenda that's important to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It has to be led from the top, or get commitment. But what does that look like, though? What are the actions that you're asking of your leaders, though? It's one thing saying that they're part of the council and part of the groups, but what some of the actions they're actually taking that really have impact?
I think one is the one that I said, that the programs, they need to be inclusive. So you need to democratize access to few things in the company. I think that's one. Our marketing teams, they are working with agencies on their campaigns, and that's part of the briefing.
Okay. So it's like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
It started in Canada and now being deployed to the rest of the world, but look, it's part of the briefing. And that is something that we didn't have before. So if you're talking about a campaign, of course you have your target audience, but you need to reflect that. Talent acquisition, it's the same. Some positions we are saying, look, we want to have in the final panel at least 1 or 2, depending on how many candidates you're showing, diverse candidates. Bias. People, they talk a lot about unconscious bias, and some people, I know that they are very critical, that they don't think that unconscious bias training helps. I have an opposite view. I think it does, because we did a lot of unconscious bias training in the last 2 years. Before, we have an annual cycle of talent management and people discussion, and we call organization people review. So we did that before all the sections, and all the leaders came to us and say, look, my perspective changed. And we are encouraging not only that, the diversity of thought, the diversity of the ideas, leaders hiring people that are different than them. And I've been hearing stories of leaders saying, look, I had 2 candidates. One was exactly like me. It would be perfect because it would be easy to manage. Yeah. We think the same way, but I chose the other one. I know that will be more challenging for me to manage him or her, but that was my choice. So it's happening. Still a lot to happen, but it's happening. Mm-hmm. So we implemented programs to accelerate women development in the company. We implemented programs to accelerate mentorship programs to accelerate minorities development. So it's starting, Yeah. Still need to see the speed that we will be able to evolve, but at least it's part of the agenda.
Exactly. You're not just ticking the box, you're actually, embedding this into every process in the organization and making sure that it's top of mind. And not just top of mind, but embedded in the process itself as well, whether it's hiring, whether it's at your PR and comms team, whatever it may be, throughout the whole organization, and it's being led by the team as well. Have you had any interesting stories around product? Because I know a lot of the diversity and inclusion success stories I hear in companies is kind of involving their ERGs, for example, in some of their product development. Given that you're in the food industry, they know best, right? They know their market, they know their culture.
we have been doing that as well. And even beyond that, we have a lot of sensory panels, tests. We are using the employees to that. And that's not only good for the product itself, but for engagement as well.
Yeah, love it. And from your own background coming into the organization from Brazil, I'm sure that kind of makes it even more passion for you to make sure that people feel included in the organization, because so many times that we do so much work to get to bring people into the business, but they come into an environment that isn't inclusive and they leave just as fast.
And look, I worked for a company in Brazil. It was my my second job, and I stayed there more than 10 years. And it was a company with 97% male.
Wow.
And I grew in that company, and I was the chief people officer of that company in the end, and I was the only woman in the room. And when I look back and I say, oh my God, if I had some of the examples that I have today, I think my life would have been so much easier as a young female professional starting the families and everything. So I try to bring this a little bit to the organization right now.
What makes Kraft Heinz stand out from other companies? Can you share any stories of what makes working at Kraft Heinz unique? What makes you stand out?
I would go back to what we said in the beginning. I think the ownership, the accountability, the passion, the willingness to do better every day. Another value that we have is exactly that: we dare to do better every day, and that is beautiful because we fight complacency. And it's good to be on an organization that you were challenged every single day. I know that maybe some people, they don't like that. It's fine. But this, I think, feeling of being better every day and having this autonomy, we know where we want to get. But if you want to choose path A, path B, or path C, of course, respecting ethics, integrity, and everything, you have autonomy to choose. You have freedom to try, live with the consequences, but you have freedom to try. And I think that is, our secret sauce, what makes us unique.
Love that. Well, look, thank you so much for
our purpose is let's make life delicious. That's the purpose of the company.
That's a good purpose.
And that's what we try to live every single day with our employees as well. Let's make work delicious. Let's make work fun. Let's make life delicious. That's the purpose of the company.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I always do this with every guest. We have a quick fire round. I ask every guest. I don't tell anyone in advance, so it's a complete surprise. So I'm going to ask you five quick questions. Don't worry, nothing to be scared of. And you have no longer than 30 seconds to give us some amazing answers. Are you ready?
Oh, 30 seconds for each? I'm good. I thought that you would give me 2 seconds for each of the questions. No,
I'm being nice.
I'm really good. You're so nice.
First question. What was the number one thing that was holding you back from becoming a chief people officer?
I think my own bar. I tend to over-engineer the track record, and I say, am I ready? I don't think I'm ready. Am I ready? And sometimes you just need to jump in and say, look, I'll get ready on the go.
Amazing. What's the best piece of business advice you received?
Oh my God. One, what brought you here won't take you to the future. So it taught me to always look ahead. Historical success is not a synonym of future success. You can live from past glories, but it's a problem as well, because that is what I was sharing, that my team said, oh my God, you don't celebrate. Every time that we get something, you said, and next.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. So
it's a blessing and a curse.
What's one book you'd recommend to our audience, and why?
Oh my God, I think probably that one will shock the audience. It for sure shock one of my peers when I said that, when he asked me, it's the art of war. And he would say, oh my God, art of war, are you sure that you are HR? And I think the main learning that I got from that book is that you need to choose your battles. You know, and you cannot play victim. If you're trying to convincing someone about something, and you were not able to, it's your problem. Go back, do more work, and then convince the person to implement what you want him or her to do.
How do you recharge your batteries? How do you re-energize?
My family, my kids, and can be 5 minutes with them. That my energy comes for sure from them.
And then last question, what's one thing about your business that you're most excited about?
I think COVID brought that back to us, you know, feeding people, and we got the word, you know, we were able to keep feeding the world in the middle of this chaos, and that while making life delicious. That's what I love. You know,
it's got to be delicious as well, right?
Sometimes you are fighting over dinner with your kids, and then a bottle of ketchup solves everything. That is making life delicious.
You know what?
And that's what I love.
My wife drives me crazy sometimes, but it's good for you because she cannot eat any meal without ketchup. And
awesome.
Sometimes it drives me crazy because I'll make the most, but she's like, it has to have Hellman, mayonnaise, and ketchup. It has to be there. But look,
no, you can change Hellman's mayonnaise. You can start using Heinz mayonnaise. That's much better. So
I'll
you
tell
can
her.
do a perfect combination of Heinz mayonnaise and Heinz ketchup.
I'll make sure she switches. I promise.
Tell her that her life will be much more delicious. Don't tell Lina from Unilever that I said that, but
I won't, don't worry. Look, thank you so much, because I can speak for everyone listening that we grew up with the brand. You know, if you speak to any kid growing up, we know Heinz and Heinz ketchup, and obviously we know Kraft as well.
And Heinz beans, especially in UK.
And beans, exactly, Heinz beans. So it's really cool to have you on the show, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share your journey and experience with everyone. It means a lot. So I appreciate that, and congratulations to you and the team for all of the incredible what you're doing and continue to do. So before I let you go, if there's like one parting piece of advice you'd give to other, HR professionals that are on their career journey, what would that be? And then where's the best place for people to connect with you if they want to reach out and say hello?
I think the advice is be curious.
Yeah,
that will make you move. Be curious. And how to reach out to me? LinkedIn, I think, is the best platform. I'm not very active on LinkedIn. I confess, I'm not someone that is all into social media, but I usually reply to messages that I receive.
Can I get your commitment then now that when we share the podcast, are you going to share it on LinkedIn?
Yes, you can.
I'm going to hold you to that.
I promise.
No worries. So thanks for listening. And for everyone listening, if you enjoyed the episode, please like, comment, share, tagging colleagues that you feel gain value. Apart from that, Melissa, enjoy the rest of your day. And it was a pleasure, and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks for inviting me. Bye.
Bye.